Well, Cipher Complex is kind of a bit more of a mix of the Bourne Identity with a Clancy kind of novel in that, well, it's still authentic to the military subject matter. It's still got those great sort of contemporary events that the story is based on, but at the same time, what we're really focused on isn't so much a game of hide and seek, but a lot more like the main character, Jason Bourne, in the Bourne Identity. It's so much more action-oriented and intense. And so what we were really looking to do wasn't to copy what's out on the market today, but to come up with a new kind of stealth gameplay that involved a lot more immediate hand-to-hand combat, something a lot more aggressive, more like the Bourne Identity.
When Thomas and I were thinking about who our antagonist is, who are we up against, we really, again, wanted to ground it in reality. We didn't want the James Bond, maniacal figure that was looking to take over the world.
When in most of the military stealth games you really are playing a game of hide and seek, we wanted to define Cipher Complex as a game more about hunting, more about aggression, more about you're aggressively infiltrating a space. And so in order to create that differentiation in people's minds, to help them understand that what we're doing is not in any way, shape, or form a clone of kind of the espionage games out there, but really something a lot more action-oriented, we really felt it was important that we kind of define and coin a new phrase for it, and that's where aggressive infiltration came from.
I had to ground it in reality, so I started doing a lot of research, and I had been thinking about, even before coming on to work here, about war and the business of war, and how companies, their whole business structure, and for them to grow, if they're in the business of war, it's a bizarre deal with the devil in the sense that war must proliferate for their company to expand. And then when I was cruising Apple's website and happened to come across the Why We Fight documentary, and it just galvanized everything immediately. Here it was, an entire documentary exploring these thoughts that I had been having in my head, and and I showed it to Thomas and other people here in the studio, and it set us on our course for a particular nemesis and a particular threat that was looming in the background of our main playable story.
We as gamers are big action fans, but at the same time we're big fans of the military subject matter and stealth games as a whole. So for us, what we were looking for is something a little more action-oriented than what's on the market right now. It's not fun to hide. Hiding is kind of disempowering in a way. We wanted a character who felt powerful, and so using the shadows and using line of sight in this game is really meant to be a means of getting close to people as opposed to staying far from them. And so the mechanics that we've been talking about, the adrenaline, without going into too much detail on it, because we don't want to spill the beans too much on that, is really there are central mechanics in the game that center around this renewable resource of adrenaline. Adrenaline is kind of the player's way to tactically manage a situation. It's an opportunity for them to decide when to attack, when to retreat, when to sort of hoard that resource and really cut loose, and when they kind of need to be a little more reserved in their gameplay. And what's really cool about that is it changes the pacing of the game as a whole, because you can't always just go all out, and you can't always just kind of play that hide and seek game. It really encourages you to change from one to the other as necessary.
At first you had a very simple mission, but as things begin to unravel and greater forces come into play, you've got to be quick to respond to those and to react to those while you're still focused on your main mission. So if things were drawn out over a longer period of time, it's not as heightened drama. In
the mechanics that we're looking for in Cipher Complex, what we're really looking for, in kind of the same way that players that play Street Fighter, for example, almost play instinctually. They speak a language of the game. We're looking for core mechanics in Cipher that are the kinds of things that you can exercise in a panic situation. It's the first thing that comes to mind when you get under duress or stress. So we're looking for those instinctive mechanics. And in Cipher, we give the player a short kind of but powerful list of abilities that range anywhere from being able to move incredibly fast to striking with extra power, combinations of light attacks, heavy attacks, stuns, finishing moves, counters.
Every piece of information, whether it be a movie or video game, it has to be very strategically placed, and especially in a video game, because it's not like you can have two characters sitting across the table from each other having a tea you got to keep moving the fun along. You got to keep moving the action along and interjecting these story pieces creatively to keep the player engaged, but you don't want them to slow down and have My Dinner with Andre. You know, it's got to be a much more fast-paced.
But we try to do that in a way that, again, is very instinctive in the way it performs, and then we help with a lot of contextual situations. So whereas a heavy attack might perform a heavy strike in the middle of combat, we change the functionality of that for an ambush attack to mean a kill. So the player doesn't need to learn dozens and dozens of keys. What instead we do is we find ways for them to learn a smaller amount of inputs, and those become more instinctive.
Anytime I write a screenplay, or even when in directing, I always want to really drill deep and dive all the way back into writing the character's entire life story. They have to have an entire life experience before they get there, and that will not only inform interesting character development, but nuances and thematics. You know, we, in writing the story, have also followed Joseph Campbell's, the Powers of the Myth, right? Hero with a Thousand Faces, and through there's so many themes and that come in and out of characters, and so a lot of those came as I started to write his backstory. So it's mainly a chance for me to get to know him and get to know his attitude and his background, and so that when he drops in here into our story, I know him intimately. And that is the case for all of our main characters.
Cipher Complex has been a real luxury for us because over the past 2 years, we've really focused on doing things what you would call the right way. This is something that goes back years. The developer is always saying, gosh, I wish we could do it the right way. I wish we could get all our ducks in a row, get our technology working, get our core gameplay working, and really take time and polish that up before we ever actually had to start building game levels out. And we've had that opportunity with this game. It's been fantastic for us.
On one level, somebody can play the game and just have a kick-ass time. That's all. If that's all they take away with it, great, we've done our job. But if somebody is also wanting to come into the game and wishing a richer experience, then we're offering that too. But if somebody at the end of the game, or even during the middle of it, if one of those pieces that we've worked into the story, clicks with them, then they may want to learn more, or it may, like watching this documentary, Why We Fight, it inspired me to want to learn more, because I so enjoy that when a movie does that. It opens up your world to something you wouldn't have perhaps thought about before.
We're gamers too. We're making this game for ourselves, and this is the first time we've really had that opportunity to say, if we made a game for ourselves, this is the one we would make. So we're our own best customer in this regard.